Taman stared at his reflection in the window of the observation deck. Behind his face, stars stretched across the darkness of space like diamonds scattered on black silk. He adjusted his uniform collar for the third time in 5 minutes. His hands were sweating. Today was the day. The Valerians were coming. After 200 years of sending radio signals into space, humanity had finally received an answer. Not from hostile invaders or mysterious energy beings, but from the Valerian Empire. A civilization that had been watching Earth for decades, waiting to see if humans would destroy themselves before making contact. Apparently, humanity had passed some kind of test. Now, the Valerians wanted to talk. Taman was chosen as the primary liaison. His specialty was xenolinguistics, the study of alien languages. For the past 15 years, he had studied every scrap of Valerian communication that Earth had intercepted. He knew their grammar, their syntax, their cultural references. He had practiced their greeting gestures until his arms ached. He was ready. At least, that was what he kept telling himself. The door behind him slid open with a soft hiss. Dong-hyun walked in carrying 2 cups of coffee. He was grinning like an idiot. "Stop looking so nervous," Dong-hyun said, handing Taman a cup. "You look like you're about to throw up." "I might," Taman admitted. He took a sip of coffee. It was too hot and burned his tongue. "Come on. You've been preparing for this your whole career. You're the best xenolinguist we have. That's why Commander Hana picked you." Taman nodded. Commander Hana was the military officer in charge of Harmony Point, the diplomatic station floating in neutral space between Earth and Valerian territory. She was tough, smart, and didn't waste time on people who couldn't do their jobs. If she believed in him, maybe he should believe in himself. "Besides," Dong-hyun continued, "aliens are just people from somewhere else, right? How different can they be?" That question was answered 30 minutes later when the Valerian shuttle docked with the station. Taman stood in the docking bay with Commander Hana and a small team of scientists and diplomats. Everyone was dressed in formal uniforms. Everyone looked nervous. The bay doors opened with a mechanical groan and cold air rushed in from the airlock. Then she walked through. Lyra, the Valerian ambassador. Taman forgot how to breathe. She was tall, taller than any human, maybe 7 feet. Her body was humanoid in the basic sense, 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. But that was where the similarities ended. Her skin was a pale blue-silver color that seemed to shimmer under the lights. Across her arms and neck, glowing patterns pulsed gently, bioluminescent markings that shifted like living tattoos. Her eyes were large and golden, with vertical pupils like a cat. Her hair, if it could be called hair, looked like fine silver threads that floated slightly as if underwater. But what really caught Taemin's attention, what made his brain short-circuit for just a moment, was her overall form. Valerians had a distinctly different body structure than humans. Their proportions were elegant, almost artistic. And their posterior anatomy was particularly striking, more pronounced and structured than human anatomy, clearly evolved for different gravity and movement patterns. Taman felt his face get hot. He forced himself to look at her face. Professional, be professional. Lyra stepped forward. Her movements were fluid, graceful. She stopped in front of Commander Hana and performed the traditional Valerian greeting, pressing her right hand to her chest and bowing slightly. "Commander Hana," Lyra said. Her voice was melodic, with a strange harmonic quality that made it sound like 2 people speaking at once. "On behalf of the Valerian Empire, I thank you for this meeting. We come in peace and curiosity." Commander Hana returned the gesture. "Ambassador Lyra, welcome to Harmony Point. We are honored by your presence." Then Lyra turned to Taemin. Her golden eyes studied him with obvious intelligence. "You must be Taemin," she said. "The xenolinguist. I have read your papers on Valerian grammar structure. Impressive work, especially considering you had so little data to work with." Taemin's mouth opened. Nothing came out. His brain was still trying to restart. Dong-hyun elbowed him in the ribs. "Yes," Taemin said, too loudly. "I mean, yes, Ambassador, thank you. Your language is beautiful. Complex, but beautiful. I'm honored to meet you." Lyra tilted her head, a gesture that Taemin recognized from his studies as indicating interest or amusement. "Your pronunciation is quite good," she said, "though your accent is charming, very human." Over the next few weeks, Taemin worked closely with Lyra. His job was to help her understand human culture, answer her questions, and facilitate communication between the Valerian delegation and the human representatives. They spent hours together every day. Lyra was fascinating. She was brilliant, asking questions that cut straight to the heart of human nature. Why did humans value individuality so much? Why did they create art? Why did they form emotional bonds that often caused them pain? The Valerians, she explained, had evolved past such things. They valued logic, efficiency, collective good over personal feeling. But despite her logical nature, Lyra seemed genuinely interested in humans. She laughed at Taemin's jokes, even when they didn't translate well. She asked about his family, his childhood, his dreams. She seemed less like a cold alien observer and more like a curious friend. And Taemin found himself increasingly distracted by her. It was ridiculous, he knew. She was an alien, a different species entirely. But there was something about her that drew him in. Her intelligence, yes, but also her grace, her confidence. The way her bioluminescent patterns glowed brighter when she was excited about a topic. And yes, if he was being honest, her physical appearance. The Valerians had evolved to be aesthetically striking, possibly as a form of social communication. Every aspect of their appearance seemed deliberately elegant, including, he couldn't help but notice, their distinctive posterior structure. He felt guilty even thinking about it. This was first contact, the most important moment in human history, and here he was, distracted by alien anatomy like some teenager. So Taemin did what he always did when his thoughts became too complicated. He wrote them down. He had kept a personal journal since college. Writing helped him process his thoughts, organize his feelings. Every night before sleep, he would sit with his datapad and type out his observations about the day. Scientific notes mixed with personal reflections. After a particularly long session with Lyra, discussing human reproductive strategies and family structures, Taemin returned to his quarters exhausted. He made himself tea, sat at his small desk, and opened his journal. He wrote about the day's discussions, about Lyra's insights into human pair bonding, about how Valerians reproduce through a very different process, one that didn't involve emotional attachment. And then, because he was tired and his filters were down, he wrote something more honest. "I know this is inappropriate," he typed. "I know I should maintain professional distance, but I can't stop thinking about her. Not just her mind, though that's incredible, but everything. The way she moves, the way her markings glow, the elegant structure of her form. I spent 10 minutes today trying not to stare at her rear end. Is that terrible? That feels terrible. She's an ambassador from an advanced civilization, and I'm thinking about her body like some kind of creep. But Valerians are so beautifully designed. Everything about them is aesthetic perfection, including, yes, her posterior anatomy, which is far more pronounced and structured than human proportions. I wonder if that's related to their higher gravity homeworld? I should ask. No, I definitely should not ask. That would be the fastest way to end my career. Note to self, be more professional tomorrow. He saved the entry, set his datapad on the desk, and went to bed. He didn't know that tomorrow he would forget that datapad in the shared workspace. He didn't know that Lyra would find it, and he definitely didn't know that she would read it. The morning started like any other morning on Harmony Point. Taemin woke up at 600 hours, made coffee that was too strong, and reviewed his notes for the day's cultural exchange session. Today's topic was human music. Lyra had specifically requested to learn about it. Apparently, the Valerians had abandoned music centuries ago when they decided that emotional expression through sound was inefficient. Taemin found that incredibly sad. A civilization without music felt wrong somehow. Like a world without color. He grabbed his jacket and headed toward the conference room, his mind already planning the presentation. He would start with classical music, maybe some Bach or Beethoven, then move to modern genres, maybe show her some traditional Korean music too, just to demonstrate human cultural diversity. He was halfway through the corridor when he realized something. His datapad. He had left it somewhere. Taemin stopped walking. Where had he left it? His quarters? No, he had checked there. The dining hall? He hadn't been there since yesterday lunch. The observation deck? Maybe. Then he remembered. Yesterday evening, after his session with Lyra, they had worked late in the shared cultural exchange workspace. He had been making notes on his datapad while she examined human literature samples. They had talked for hours about human poetry, which fascinated her. When they finished, he had been so tired that he must have just left the datapad on the table. Taemin felt a cold spike of worry. His datapad, with his journal, with all his private thoughts. He started walking faster, then running. The shared workspace was on the other side of the station. It took him 5 minutes to get there, and he was breathing hard when he arrived. The door slid open. The room was empty. The table was clean. His datapad was gone. Looking for this? Taemin spun around. Dong-hyun was standing in the doorway holding a datapad. But it wasn't Taemin's. The casing was different. "That's not mine," Taemin said. "I know. Yours was turned into the lost and found this morning. Some maintenance worker found it and logged it into the system. You can pick it up at the administration office." Dong-hyun grinned. "You're getting careless, my friend. That's not like you." Taemin felt relief wash over him. Lost and found. That meant it was safe. No one would have looked at his personal files. There were privacy protocols. "Thanks," Taemin said. "I'll grab it before the session." "You better hurry. Lyra was asking about you earlier. She seemed excited about the music presentation." Taemin nodded and headed toward the administration office. The relief was already fading, replaced by embarrassment. He was supposed to be the professional liaison, and here he was losing his equipment like a first-year intern. He needed to be more careful, especially with his journal. Those entries were personal, private. If anyone read them, especially the recent ones about Lyra, he would die of embarrassment. What he didn't know was that the datapad had never made it to Lost and Found. What he didn't know was that Lyra had found it first. The previous evening, after Taemin left the workspace, Lyra had remained behind. She enjoyed the quiet of the station at night. The humans slept for 8 hours every day, which seemed excessive to her, but it gave her time to think without interruption. She had been reviewing human poetry on her own datapad when she noticed Taemin's device on the table. He had forgotten it. Humans were so careless with their belongings. Valerians would never forget important equipment. Then again, Valerians didn't get tired the way humans did. Perhaps exhaustion affected their memory. Lyra picked up the datapad, intending to return it to him, but the screen was still active. And she saw text displayed, a document titled Personal Journal, Day 47. In Valerian culture, personal privacy was not a concept that existed. All information was shared. All thoughts were communal. The idea of keeping secrets was considered antisocial, even dangerous. When Valerians wrote something down, it was meant to be read by others. That was the purpose of writing. So Lyra, operating under her own cultural assumptions, thought nothing of reading what was on the screen. She assumed Taemin had left it open because he wanted to share his thoughts. Perhaps this was his way of communicating something important. She began to read. The early entries were professional, notes about their sessions, observations about Valerian language patterns, questions about cultural differences, all very academic. Then the entries changed. They became more personal. Taemin wrote about his impressions of her, not just as an ambassador but as an individual. He found her intelligence stimulating, her curiosity refreshing, her presence calming. Lyra felt something strange as she read these words, a warmth in her chest, an acceleration of her circulatory system. Emotions she had been taught to suppress were surfacing. Then she reached the most recent entry, the one from last night. She read it once, then read it again. I can't stop thinking about her. I spent 10 minutes today trying not to stare at her rear end. Lyra's bioluminescent markings flickered rapidly, a sign of surprise. Then they settled into a steady, bright glow, a sign of amusement. He found her physically attractive. Specifically, he appreciated her posterior structure. In Valerian culture, physical appreciation was not shameful. It was honest. Bodies were just biological forms. Admiring someone's physical design was like admiring a beautiful building or a well-made tool. There was no embarrassment in it. But Taemin clearly felt embarrassed. He called himself a creep. He worried about being unprofessional. He was fighting against his own natural reactions. How very human. Lyra continued reading through other entries. Taemin had been thinking about her for weeks, not just professionally but personally. He was developing feelings, attachment, the very thing Valerians had bred out of themselves, and Lyra realized something that surprised her. She was pleased. No, more than pleased. She was excited. For weeks, she had been studying human emotion from the outside, treating it like a scientific curiosity. But now, reading Taemin's honest thoughts, she felt something shifting inside herself. The emotions she had been taught to suppress were waking up. She found herself thinking about Taemin differently. His expressions when he was excited about explaining something, the way he gestured with his hands, his laugh, which was warm and genuine, his smell, which was distinctly human but not unpleasant. And yes, if she was being honest with herself, his physical form was appealing. Humans were shorter than Valerians, more compact, but there was an interesting proportion to their bodies, a different kind of aesthetic. Lyra made a decision. She would return the datapad to Taemin, but not quietly, not without comment. She would confront him about what she had read, not to shame him, but to open a dialogue. Because if there was one thing Lyra had learned about humans, it was that they were terrible at saying what they really felt. They hid behind politeness and professional distance. Perhaps it was time to push past that distance. The next morning, Lyra arrived at the administration office before it opened. She waited until she saw the staff member who handled Lost and Found arrive. She explained that she had found a lost datapad and wanted to return it directly to its owner rather than going through official channels. The staff member, eager to please the Valerian ambassador, agreed. Lyra took the datapad with her to the conference room, where she and Taemin held their daily sessions. She sat down and waited. When Taemin arrived 10 minutes later, he looked relieved. He was carrying a different datapad, presumably retrieved from Lost and Found. A decoy, Lyra realized. The administration office had given him a replacement, not knowing she had the original. "Good morning, Ambassador," Taemin said, smiling. "I'm sorry if I kept you waiting. I had a small equipment issue this morning, but it's resolved now." Lyra stood up. She held out his actual datapad. "You mean this equipment?" she said. Taemin's face went through several expressions very quickly. Confusion, recognition, then absolute horror. "That's... Where did you..." "I found it last night in the workspace. You left it on the table." "Oh, thank you. I was looking for that." He reached out to take it, his hand shaking slightly. Lyra didn't give it to him. Not yet. I read it, she said calmly. The color drained from Tae-min's face, then rushed back, turning his cheeks bright red. You... what? I read your journal. In my culture, written words are meant to be shared. I did not realize humans had different customs about privacy. I apologize for the cultural misunderstanding. Tae-min looked like he wanted to die, or run away, or possibly both. Oh God, I'm so sorry, those were private thoughts. I didn't mean... I was just... Lyra tilted her head. Her markings pulsed with warm golden light. So you like my rear human? The silence that followed was very loud. Tae-min wanted to disappear. He wanted the floor to open up and swallow him into space. He wanted to go back in time and stop himself from ever writing that stupid journal entry. He wanted to be anywhere else in the entire universe except standing in this room, staring at Lyra while she quoted his most embarrassing private thoughts back to him. So you like my rear human? The words hung in the air like a grenade that had already exploded. Tae-min's mouth opened and closed like a fish. No words came out. His brain had completely shut down. This was it. His career was over. He would be remembered forever as the xenolinguist who ruined First Contact because he couldn't stop thinking about alien anatomy. Lyra was still watching him with those golden eyes. Her expression was impossible to read. Were Valerians angry the same way humans were angry? Did they even get angry? He couldn't remember. All his training, all his knowledge was gone. His mind was empty, except for one thought repeating over and over. I am so incredibly fired. Tae-min finally managed to speak. His voice came out as a squeak. He cleared his throat and tried again. I'm so sorry, Ambassador. That was completely inappropriate. I was tired and not thinking clearly, and I should never have written something so disrespectful about you. I understand if you want to file a complaint. I understand if you want a different liaison. I'll pack my things and... Why are you apologizing? Lyra interrupted. Tae-min stopped. What? Why are you apologizing? She repeated. For finding me physically attractive? Because it's inappropriate. You're an ambassador. This is First Contact. I'm supposed to be professional. I'm supposed to represent humanity with dignity and respect. Not staring at your... He couldn't even say the word. His face was so hot he thought it might actually catch fire. Lyra tilted her head again. That gesture that meant she was curious or confused. Her bioluminescent markings flickered through several colors before settling on a soft blue. Tae-min, she said, and it was the first time she had used his name without his title. In Valerian culture, physical appreciation is not considered disrespectful. It is honest. Bodies are simply biological forms. To notice that a form is aesthetically pleasing is natural. Why would this be shameful? Tae-min blinked. But I objectified you. I reduced you to just a physical appearance. Did you? Lyra moved closer. She was so tall that he had to tilt his head back to maintain eye contact. In your journal, you also wrote about my intelligence, my curiosity, my insights into human culture. You wrote that you find our conversation stimulating. You wrote that you respect my perspective. You wrote many things about who I am as an individual. The physical observation was just one small part. How is that objectification? Tae-min didn't have an answer for that. She was right. He had written about so many aspects of her. The physical attraction was just one piece. Humans have very strange attitudes about bodies and attraction, Lyra continued. She walked over to the window, looking out at the stars. You are ashamed of natural biological responses. You hide your feelings. You pretend not to notice what you notice. This seems exhausting. It is, Tae-min admitted. He was starting to breathe normally again. His heart was still racing, but at least he could think. But it's how we maintain social order. If everyone just said every thought they had about every person they met, society would be chaos. Would it? Lyra turned back to him. Or would it simply be more honest? Tae-min considered this. Maybe both. Lyra's markings flickered again, this time with what looked like amusement. You should know something, Tae-min. Valerians have also been observing human physiology with great interest. Do you know what we find most fascinating about human bodies? What? Tae-min asked, genuinely curious now. Your endurance, your adaptability. Humans can survive in conditions that would kill most species. You can go days without food. You can heal from injuries that would be fatal to us. You can run for hours, not fast, but steady, wearing down prey until it collapses. You are persistence hunters, survivors. Your bodies are designed for one thing above all else, to refuse to die. She paused. We find that incredibly attractive. Tae-min stared at her. You find humans attractive? Some of us do, yes. Not in a reproductive sense, obviously. Our biologies are incompatible, but aesthetically, emotionally, absolutely. She moved closer again. You want to know what I wrote in my personal log after meeting you? You keep a log? Tae-min was still processing the idea that Valerians found humans attractive. Of course, I document everything. It is standard procedure. Lyra accessed her own datapad and pulled up a file. She began to read aloud. Day 1. Met the human liaison today. Tae-min. He is shorter than expected but carries himself with confidence. His face is very expressive. I can read his emotions clearly, which is unusual and refreshing. Most beings are harder to read. I find myself curious about him. She scrolled down. Day 15. Tae-min laughed today at something I said. I did not intend humor, but his laugh was genuine and warm. I noticed that I wanted to hear it again. This is a new experience for me. Valerians do not typically seek to please others emotionally. She scrolled further. Day 32. I find myself watching Tae-min when he is not aware. The way he gestures when excited. The way his eyes light up when discussing language. The way he touches his hair when nervous. These small human mannerisms are fascinating. I believe I am developing what humans would call fondness. Tae-min's heart was doing strange things in his chest. You were thinking about me too? Obviously. Lyra set down her datapad. Why do you think I requested you specifically as my liaison? Why do you think I asked for extended sessions? Why do you think I kept finding excuses to spend more time with you? I thought you were just interested in human culture. I am, but I am also interested in you. She moved even closer now, close enough that Tae-min had to step back until his back hit the wall. Reading your journal made me realize something important. For weeks I have been suppressing my own emotional responses, following my Valerian training. But humans do not suppress. You feel. You admit what you feel, even if only to yourself. That is what your journal was. An admission of feeling. And it mortified me, Tae-min said weakly. Why? Because you are attracted to me? Because you find my physical form appealing? Lyra raised her hand and gently touched the side of his face. Her fingers were cool, but not cold. Her touch was surprisingly gentle for someone so much larger than him. Tae-min, I find your physical form appealing too. Your proportions are interesting. Your face is expressive and pleasant to look at. Your voice has a quality I enjoy. And yes, since we are being honest, I have observed your posterior anatomy as well. Humans have very functional gluteal structures, efficient, aesthetically balanced. Tae-min felt his face turning red again, but this time it was different. Not embarrassment, something else. You, looked at my butt? Several times. It is right there. Why would I not look? She said it so matter-of-factly that Taemin couldn't help it. He started to laugh. The absurdity of the situation finally broke through his mortification. Here he was, pressed against a wall, having a conversation about butts with an alien ambassador who had just admitted to checking him out. Lyra's markings brightened, shifting to a warm golden color. There, that laugh. I enjoy that sound very much. Taemin's laughter faded into a smile. This is the weirdest first contact in history, isn't it? Perhaps, but also the most honest. Lyra stepped back, giving him space again. I have a proposal for you, Taemin. Let us stop pretending. Let us stop hiding behind professional distance. You are attracted to me. I am attracted to you. These are facts. We can acknowledge them and continue our work, or we can keep pretending and make ourselves miserable. Which do you prefer? Taemin thought about it. Really thought about it. His whole life he had been taught to hide his feelings, to be professional, to maintain appropriate boundaries. But what if those boundaries were getting in the way? What if honesty, even uncomfortable honesty, was better? Acknowledgement, he said finally. Let's try honesty. Good. Lyra handed him his data pad. Then I will be honest with you. I read your entire journal, every entry, and I found all of it interesting. Your observations, your questions, your doubts, your attractions. All of it is valuable because it is honest. Do not be ashamed of honesty, Taemin. It is humanity's greatest strength. From across the room, hidden in the observation window, Dong-hyun and Commander Ha-na watched the entire interaction. Should we be worried? Dong-hyun whispered. Ha-na shook her head slowly. No, I think we just witnessed something important. I'm not sure what, but something. Think they'll be okay? I think, Ha-na said thoughtfully, they're going to be better than okay. I think they might be making history. She was more right than she knew. 3 days after the journal incident, everything changed. Taemin and Lyra had settled into a new rhythm. They were still professional, still focused on their cultural exchange work, but now there was an ease between them. No more pretending, no more hiding. They acknowledged their mutual attraction and simply let it exist alongside their work. It was strange how much better everything felt when they stopped fighting their own feelings. They were in the observation deck, sharing lunch and discussing human philosophy when the alarms started. Red lights flashed. A loud warning siren echoed through the station. Taemin's datapad buzzed with an emergency message. All personnel report to stations. Unknown threat detected. This is not a drill. Taemin and Lyra ran to the command center. Commander Ha-na was already there, surrounded by screens showing sensor data. Dong-hyun was at his communication console, looking worried. Other crew members were rushing to their positions. What's happening? Taemin asked. Ha-na pointed at the main screen. We have a problem, a big one. The screen showed a small moon orbiting a nearby gas giant. The moon looked ordinary, just rock and ice, but the sensor readings were anything but ordinary. Massive energy spikes were coming from beneath the surface. Something just activated down there, Ha-na explained. Some kind of facility, ancient tech, maybe thousands of years old, and it's scanning us. Both our ships and the Valerian vessels. Lyra stepped closer to examine the data. Her markings flickered rapidly, a sign of concern. This energy signature, I recognize it. These are the patterns of the architects. The who? Dong-hyun asked. An ancient civilization. They existed millions of years ago, long before Valerians or humans evolved. They built machines throughout this sector of space. Most of those machines are dormant, dead, but sometimes they wake up. And when they wake up, Taemin had a bad feeling about this. They protect themselves, aggressively. Lyra pulled up historical records on her datapad. The last time a Valerian ship encountered an architect facility, it took 3 battleships to destroy the defense systems. We lost 2 of those ships and 800 crew members. Hana cursed under her breath. We have 1 small diplomatic station and 2 science vessels. We're not equipped for a fight. The screen changed. New data appeared. The moon was launching something. Small objects, dozens of them, rising from the surface and accelerating toward the station. "Drones," Dong-hyun said. "Combat drones. They'll be here in 15 minutes. Hana immediately started giving orders. "All ships, prepare for evasive maneuvers. Power up defensive shields. Someone get me a tactical analysis." Lyra was already working on her datapad. "The drones are not the main problem. The main problem is the central AI controlling them. It is located beneath the moon's surface. As long as the AI is active, it will keep sending drones. We could destroy 1,000 drones, and it would simply build more." "Can we destroy the AI?" Hana asked. "Yes. But we would need to get past the drones, land on the moon, penetrate the facility, and disable the core. Our ships cannot get close enough. The drones will tear them apart." "What about a stealth approach?" Tae-min suggested. "Small team, quiet insertion?" Lyra shook her head. "The AI has sensors covering the entire moon. It will detect any approach. Valerian stealth technology will not work. The AI knows all our patterns. It was programmed to defend against threats like us." "Like you," Tae-min said quietly. "But not like us." Everyone turned to look at him. "What do you mean?" Hana asked. Tae-min's mind was racing. An idea was forming. A crazy idea. "The AI is ancient, right? Built millions of years ago. It knows about Valerians because Valerians have been in space for thousands of years. But humans? We've only been out here for a few decades. The AI doesn't know about us. We're not in its database." Lyra's eyes widened. "You are suggesting the AI might not recognize humans as a threat." "Exactly. To the AI, Valerians are advanced, dangerous, worth defending against. But humans? We're new, primitive. Maybe we don't register as important enough to attack." "That's a huge gamble," Dong-hyun said. "What if you're wrong? What if it kills you anyway?" "Then I'm dead, and we're no worse off than we are now. But if I'm right, I can get inside that facility." Tae-min turned to Lyra. "Can you teach me how to disable the AI core? The process is complex, requires understanding of architect programming language. Years of study. You have 15 minutes to teach me the important parts. I'm a fast learner." Hana stood up. "I don't like sending a linguist on a military operation." "Good thing this isn't a military operation, then. It's a linguistic one." Tae-min smiled, though his heart was pounding. "The AI speaks a language. I just need to tell it to shut up." 10 minutes later, Tae-min was in a small shuttle, approaching the moon. Lyra was with him. She had insisted on coming, despite the danger. If something went wrong, she wanted to be there to help. The shuttle was human-made, simple, low-tech compared to Valerian vessels. That was the plan. Look insignificant. Look harmless. They watched the sensors as they got closer. The drones were still focused on the Valerian ships, harassing them, forcing them to retreat. But the drones ignored the small human shuttle completely. "It's working," Tae-min breathed. "It thinks we're not worth noticing." They landed on the moon's surface. The facility entrance was a large metal door built into the side of a crater. Lyra examined it with her scanning device. The door is locked, but the locking mechanism is designed to keep out Valerian technology. Your human equipment might bypass it. Tae-min pulled out a simple cutting torch, the kind used for basic repairs. He applied it to the door's control panel. Sparks flew. The panel shorted out. The door slid open. "Primitive solutions for primitive locks," Tae-min said. "Sometimes low-tech is the right tech." Inside, the facility was dark and cold. Their lights revealed vast corridors made of black metal, covered in alien symbols. The architecture was beautiful and terrifying, built on scales that made humans look like insects. "The core is this way," Lyra said, checking her scanner. "3 levels down." They moved quickly through the facility. Everywhere they saw evidence of the architects, machines still running after millions of years, technology that humanity couldn't begin to understand. It was humbling and frightening. They reached the core chamber. It was a massive room with a glowing sphere in the center, pulsing with blue light. Energy crackled around it. This was the AI, the mind controlling everything. "Now what?" Taemin asked. "Now you do what humans do best," Lyra said. She pulled up a holographic interface. Symbols appeared, floating in the air. "This is the command language. I cannot interact with it. The AI recognizes me as a threat. But you might be able to." Taemin stepped forward. His hands were shaking. He reached out and touched the interface. It didn't attack him. It responded, symbols shifting and changing. "It's listening to me," Taemin said, amazed. "Then tell it to stop. But you must phrase it correctly. The architects valued logic above all else. You must give it a logical reason to shut down." Taemin studied the symbols. They were like nothing he had ever seen, but they had patterns, structure. It was a language, and languages were what he did. He began to work, translating commands, building arguments. The AI responded to each input, processing his words. But it wouldn't shut down. It kept rejecting his commands. "This isn't working," Taemin said, frustrated. "Every logical argument I make, it has a counter-argument. It was built to be too smart for logic puzzles." "Then stop being logical," Lyra said suddenly. "Be human." Taemin looked at her. "What?" "Humans do not rely purely on logic. You use emotion, intuition, creativity, things this AI was never programmed to handle. Stop trying to outthink it. Do something it cannot predict." Taemin took a breath. She was right. He had been approaching this like a Valerian, trying to be perfectly logical. But he wasn't Valerian. He was human. He started entering commands randomly, not following any pattern, not building arguments, just chaos, pure, creative, human chaos. He told the AI jokes, he input poetry, he gave it paradoxes with no solutions, he flooded it with emotional concepts that it had no framework to process. The AI began to glitch. The blue light flickered. The sphere's pulse became erratic. "It's working," Lyra said. "The AI is trying to process your inputs but cannot. It is creating errors in its core logic." Taemin kept going. He input song lyrics. He described the color blue using only emotions. He asked it questions about love and fear and hope, things that had no logical answers. The sphere pulsed faster and faster. Then, with a sound like breaking glass, it stopped. The light faded. The energy died. The AI shut down, unable to cope with the beautiful illogic of human thought. "You did it," Lyra whispered. Taemin collapsed to his knees, exhausted. "I broke an ancient, super-intelligent AI with poetry and bad jokes. That actually worked." "That," Lyra said, helping him stand, "is why humans are terrifying. You win by refusing to play by the rules." They made it back to the shuttle. The drones had stopped moving. Without the AI to control them, they were just dead metal floating in space. When they returned to Harmony Point, Hana and the entire crew were waiting. They cheered when Taemin and Lyra emerged from the shuttle. Dong-hyun hugged Taemin hard enough to hurt. "You insane genius. You actually pulled it off." Hana shook his hand firmly. "That was the bravest and stupidest thing I've ever seen. Thank you." But it was Lyra's words that Taemin remembered most. She spoke to the gathered crowd, her voice carrying across the bay. "Today I learned something crucial about humanity. You are not the strongest species, not the smartest, not the most advanced, but you have something no one else has. You have the ability to look at an impossible problem and solve it by being impossible yourselves. That is your advantage. That is your strength. She looked directly at Tai Min. That is why you are going to change the galaxy. News of what happened on the moon spread fast. Too fast. Within 2 days, everyone on Harmony Point knew about Tai Min and Lyra's mission. Within a week, everyone in Earth's diplomatic corps knew. Within 2 weeks, everyone in the Valerian Empire knew, and not everyone was happy about it. Tai Min woke up one morning to find his personal messages flooded. Most were positive. Congratulations. Thank you. You saved lives. But some were different. Questions about his relationship with Lyra. Accusations about inappropriate conduct. Suggestions that he was compromising the mission by getting too close to the alien ambassador. He showed the messages to Dong Hyun over breakfast. Ignore them, Dong Hyun said, eating his rice with chopsticks. People always find something to complain about. You're a hero. They're jealous. Maybe they have a point, Tai Min said quietly. Maybe I am getting too close. Maybe my feelings are affecting my judgment. Your feelings made you brave enough to fly to that moon and shut down an AI that would have killed us all. So no, I don't think your feelings are a problem. Tai Min wanted to believe that, but the messages kept coming. And then Commander Hana called him to her office. She was standing by the window when he entered, looking out at the stars. She didn't turn around immediately. Sit down, Tai Min. He sat. His heart was racing. This felt bad. Hana finally turned to face him. I'm going to be direct with you. There are concerns being raised about your relationship with Ambassador Lyra. Some people believe it's inappropriate. Some believe it could compromise the alliance. Commander, I would never... She held up her hand. I'm not done. There are concerns. I do not share those concerns. You have conducted yourself professionally and bravely, but I need to warn you that scrutiny is coming, from both sides. Both sides? The Valerians are sending another delegation, led by an ambassador named Kira. She is traditional, old guard. She does not approve of the current approach to human relations, and she definitely does not approve of Lyra's methods. Tai Min felt cold. What does that mean? It means that when Kira arrives, things are going to get complicated. Be prepared. Kira arrived 3 days later. Her ship was larger than Lyra's, more heavily armed. When she stepped off the shuttle, Tai Min understood immediately why Hana had warned him. Kira was older than Lyra, her bioluminescent markings dimmer, more silver than gold. She carried herself with rigid formality. When she looked at the humans gathered to greet her, her expression was cold. Not hostile exactly, but distant, evaluating. Commander Hana, Kira said, her voice lacking the warmth that Lyra's had. Thank you for receiving me. I have been sent by the High Council to assess the current diplomatic situation. We are honored by your presence, Ambassador Kira, Hana responded formally. Kira's eyes moved to Lyra, who stood beside Tai Min. Ambassador Lyra, I have read your reports. They are unconventional. I strive to be thorough, Lyra replied calmly. Thorough, yes. Kira's gaze moved to Tai Min. And you must be the human who disabled the architect AI, Tai Min, the xenolinguist. Yes, Ambassador. Tai Min bowed slightly, the way he had been taught for formal greetings. Interesting. Kira studied him like he was a specimen under a microscope. I look forward to learning more about your methods. The way she said methods made Tai Min's skin crawl. Over the next week, Kira made her presence felt. She attended every meeting. She questioned every decision. She examined every aspect of the human-Valerian exchange with critical eyes, and she paid particular attention to Tai Min and Lyra. She never directly accused them of anything. She was too diplomatic for that. But her implications were clear. In meetings, She would mention the importance of maintaining professional distance. She would reference historical examples of diplomatic missions that failed due to personal entanglements. She would speak about the need for objectivity in cultural assessment, and she started to spread doubt among both humans and Valerians. Timon overheard her talking to some of the Valerian junior diplomats one day. He was walking past a conference room when he heard his name. "The human Timon is clearly intelligent," Kira was saying, "but intelligence without discipline is dangerous. Humans are driven by emotion. This makes them unpredictable. Useful in certain situations, perhaps, as we saw with the AI incident. But in diplomacy, in long-term planning, their emotional nature is a liability." One of the junior diplomats spoke up. "But Ambassador Lyra says that human emotion is a strength, that we have lost something important by suppressing our own feelings." "Ambassador Lyra," Kira said coldly, "has been compromised by prolonged exposure to human thinking. She is beginning to think like them, to feel like them. This is not evolution. This is degradation." Taemin moved away before he could hear more. His hands were shaking with anger. Lyra, compromised. Lyra, who was brilliant and kind and open-minded. Lyra, who had seen value in humanity when others saw only primitives. He found Lyra in the observation deck. She was alone, looking out at the stars. He could tell from the dimness of her markings that she was upset. "You heard," she said without turning around. "Some of it. Kira is trying to undermine everything we've built. She is trying to protect Valerian culture. From her perspective, I am the problem. I am the one who is changing, abandoning our ways." Lyra finally turned to face him. "And perhaps she is right." "No." Taemin stepped closer. "You're not abandoning anything. You're growing. There's a difference." "Is there? I have been with humans for 3 months. In that time, I have developed feelings I was taught to suppress, attachments I was taught to avoid. I look at you, Taemin, and I feel things that Valerians are not supposed to feel. Kira would say I have been infected by human weakness." "And what would you say?" Taemin asked quietly. Lyra was silent for a long moment. Then she smiled, and her markings brightened to warm gold. "I would say that I have been infected by human strength, and I would not trade that for anything." But Kira was not finished. 2 days later, she called a formal assembly. All human senior staff and all Valerian diplomats were required to attend. The meeting room was packed. Kira stood at the front, her presence commanding. "I have completed my assessment of the current diplomatic situation. I have concerns that must be addressed." She pulled up a holographic display. It showed excerpts from Lyra's reports, but the excerpts were carefully selected to make the exchange sound frivolous, emotional, unscientific. "Ambassador Lyra has submitted reports filled with subjective observations, personal feelings, anecdotal evidence. This is not proper diplomatic procedure. This is not how Valerians conduct analysis." She changed the display. Now it showed images of Taemin and Lyra working together, talking, laughing. The images looked innocent, but presented in this context, they looked inappropriate. Furthermore, there appears to be an inappropriate personal relationship developing between Ambassador Lyra and the human liaison, Taemin. This relationship colors all observations. It compromises objectivity. It puts the entire alliance at risk. Murmurs spread through the room, some of agreement, some of disagreement. Taemin felt his face burning. Commander Hana stood up. "Ambassador Kira, with respect, Ambassador Lyra and Taemin have conducted themselves professionally. They saved this station and all personnel aboard when they disabled the Architect AI. That action demonstrated courage and competence." "That action," Kira countered, "demonstrated recklessness. They took an enormous risk based on emotional impulse rather than calculated strategy. They were fortunate it worked." Fortune is not a foundation for diplomacy. Neither is cold calculation without understanding, a voice said. Everyone turned. Lyra had stood up. Her markings were blazing bright, almost blinding in their intensity. Ambassador Kira, you speak of objectivity and procedure, but you do not speak of results. In 3 months, Tai Min and I have achieved more understanding between our species than was accomplished in 20 years of careful, distant observation. Why? Because we engaged honestly. Because we allowed ourselves to care about the truth rather than just the facts. Care is not the same as competence, Kira said. No, but competence without care is empty. You say I have been compromised by human emotion. Perhaps I have, but I have also been enriched by it. I have learned things about myself, about my species, that I could never have learned through detached analysis. Lyra walked to the center of the room. She pulled out a data pad. You showed edited excerpts from my reports. Let me show the full context. She displayed her complete reports. They were detailed, thorough, scientific, but they were also filled with insights that could only come from genuine connection. Observations about human resilience, human creativity, human capacity for growth. Humans are not perfect, Lyra continued. They are emotional, sometimes illogical, often unpredictable. But these are not only weaknesses, these are also strengths. The architect AI could not be defeated by Valerian logic. It was defeated by human chaos, by creativity, by the refusal to accept that a problem was impossible. She looked directly at Kira. You speak of the danger of personal entanglement, but I believe the greater danger is remaining distant, cold, uninvolved. The Valerians have pursued logic and efficiency for centuries. And what has it brought us? We are dying. Our birth rates decline. Our emotional capacity withers. We are becoming machines that happen to be made of flesh. The room was completely silent now. Humans, Lyra said quietly, reminded me what it feels like to be alive, to care, to hope, to feel joy and fear and love. These are not weaknesses. These are what make life worth living. If that is compromise, then yes, I am compromised. And I choose to remain so. She sat down. The silence continued for several seconds. Then Dong Hyun started clapping. Slowly others joined, humans and Valerians both. Not everyone, but enough. Kira stood rigid, her expression unreadable. Finally, she spoke. This matter is not settled. I will report everything to the High Council. They will decide the future of this alliance. She left the room. Several of the older Valerians followed her, but several of the younger ones stayed, looking at Lyra with something like wonder in their eyes. After the meeting, Tae Min found Lyra alone in her quarters. She looked exhausted. That was the bravest thing I've ever seen, he said, or the most foolish. I may have just ended my career. Then we'll end our careers together. Tae Min took her hand. It was the first time they had touched deliberately, intimately. Whatever happens, I'm with you. Lyra's markings glowed soft and warm. You realize that we may have just started a political crisis? Yeah. But it's the most honest political crisis in history. Lyra laughed, that beautiful melodic laugh that Tae Min loved to hear. Only a human would find that reassuring. That's what makes us special. For 2 weeks after the confrontation with Kira, everything felt like it was hanging in balance. The Valerian High Council was deliberating. Earth's diplomatic committee was deliberating. Everyone was waiting to see what would happen to the alliance, to the mission, to Tae Min and Lyra. Tae Min threw himself into his work. He cataloged human languages, compiled cultural databases, prepared educational materials. Anything to keep his mind occupied. But every night, he lay awake wondering if everything they had built was about to collapse. Lyra seemed calmer, more at peace. She continued her duties as if nothing had changed. She still met with human representatives. She still submitted her reports. She still refused to hide or apologize for what she had said. "Aren't you worried?" Taemin asked her one afternoon as they reviewed translation protocols. "About what the council will decide? Of course. But worry will not change their decision. All I can do is stand by what I believe is true." "And what if they recall you? What if they end the exchange program?" Lyra set down her datapad and looked at him with those golden eyes. "Then I will have had these months with you and your people. That will have to be enough." "It won't be enough," Taemin said quietly. "Not for me." Something shifted in Lyra's expression. Her markings pulsed brighter. "Taemin, there is something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you weeks ago." "But I was afraid." "Afraid? You're never afraid." "That is not true. I have been afraid many times since meeting you. Afraid of what I was feeling. Afraid of where those feelings would lead." She stood up and walked to the window, her back to him. "In Valerian culture, we have a concept called Kethra. There is no perfect human translation, but it means something like a resonance of souls, a connection that goes beyond logic or biology. It is very rare. Most Valerians never experience it in their entire lives." "And?" Taemin's heart was beating faster. "I believe I am experiencing it with you." Lyra turned to face him. "This should be impossible. You are human. I am Valerian. We are fundamentally different beings. But when I am with you, I feel complete in a way I have never felt before. When I am not with you, I feel diminished. Your joy makes me joyful. Your pain causes me pain. This is not logical. This is not how I was trained to think. But it is true." Taemin stood frozen. He wanted to speak, but his throat was tight. Lyra continued, her voice softer now. "I know that my species and yours cannot reproduce together. I know that a romantic relationship in the biological sense may not be possible. But I also know that what I feel for you is real, and I believe you feel something similar for me. Am I wrong?" "No," Taemin managed to say. "You're not wrong." "Then I must be honest with you about something else, something I have not told anyone, not even my own people." Lyra's markings dimmed, showing distress. "The Valerians are dying, Taemin. Not immediately, not dramatically, but slowly, over generations. Our population is declining. Our birth rates are at historic lows. Do you know why?" Taemin shook his head. "Because we have lost the ability to form the emotional bonds necessary for reproduction. Valerian biology requires what you would call love, or at least deep emotional connection, but we have spent centuries breeding emotion out of ourselves, teaching ourselves to value logic over feeling, efficiency over passion, and now we are paying the price. We can still reproduce technically, but we lack the desire, the drive, the care." "That's why you were so interested in human emotion," Taemin realized. "You were studying it to try to save your species." "Partly, yes. But it became more than that. Spending time with you, with humans, I began to feel things I thought were lost to me. Joy, curiosity, affection, and something more. Something I did not expect." She moved closer to him. "Love. I believe I love you, Taemin, and saying that terrifies me." Taemin's vision blurred. He realized he was crying. "Why does it terrify you?" "Because love means vulnerability. Love means caring about something more than yourself. Love means the possibility of loss. These are frightening concepts for someone raised to be logical and self-sufficient." Taemin reached out and took her hand. Her skin was cool, smooth, nothing like human skin, but her fingers wrapped around his with gentle strength. "I love you too," he said. "I have for weeks, maybe longer. I kept telling myself it was impossible, that I was being stupid, that it could never work. But I can't stop feeling it." Lyra's markings blazed bright. brighter than he had ever seen them. You should know what this means. If we pursue this, if we make our relationship official, there will be consequences. Political, social, cultural. Both of our worlds will judge us. Some will celebrate us. Others will condemn us. Are you prepared for that? I don't know, Taemin admitted, but I know I don't want to lose you. I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering what could have been if I had been brave enough to try. Then let us be brave together. Lyra pulled him close. They stood there holding each other, two beings from different worlds who had found something precious and rare. The moment felt too big for words. Finally, Lyra spoke again. I want to take you somewhere. A place that is important to me. Will you come? Anywhere, Taemin said. That evening, Lyra led Taemin to a small shuttle. She piloted it herself, taking them away from Harmony Point and into open space. They flew for 30 minutes until they reached a point where there were no stations, no ships, just stars in every direction. Lyra shut down all the lights in the shuttle except for the emergency indicators. They sat in near darkness, surrounded by the infinite expanse of the universe. This is where I come when I need to think, Lyra said. When I need to remember how small I am, how small all of us are. It's beautiful, Taemin whispered. Yes, but also humbling. Look at all those stars, billions of them. And around many of those stars there are planets. And on some of those planets there is life. Beings we have never met, cultures we cannot imagine. The universe is so vast, Taemin, so full of possibility. She turned to look at him, her face illuminated by the soft glow of her own markings. And yet, out of all that vastness, out of all those billions of stars and worlds, I met you, a human, a being whose species has only just reached the stars. What are the odds of that? What strange chance brought us together? Maybe it wasn't chance, Taemin said. Maybe the universe wanted us to meet. Maybe it needed us to meet. You sound like a romantic. I am a romantic. Isn't that one of the things you like about me? Lyra smiled. It is one of many things. She reached into a storage compartment and pulled out a small device. I want to give you something. In Valerian culture, when two people form a bond, they exchange what we call memory stones. They are not actually stones. They are data storage devices, but the tradition is ancient. She activated the device. A holographic display appeared showing images, Lyra's memories. Taemin saw himself through her eyes, the first time they met, working together in the lab, laughing over a meal, standing beside her as they faced the architect AI. Dozens of moments, all saved, all precious to her. These are my favorite memories of you, Lyra said. I want you to have them, to know how I see you, how important you are to me. Taemin felt tears on his cheeks again. I don't have anything like this to give you. You have given me everything. You have given me back something I thought was lost. The ability to feel, the desire to connect, the courage to be more than what I was taught to be. She placed the device in his hand. That is the greatest gift anyone has ever given me. They sat together in the darkness, watching the stars, holding each other. And for the first time since this whole complicated situation began, Taemin felt certain. Certain that what they had was real. Certain that it was worth fighting for. Certain that whatever happened next, they would face it together. What do you think will happen? Taemin asked eventually. When the council makes their decision? I do not know, but I believe something important is happening. Not just with us, but with our people. Humans and Valerians are learning from each other, growing because of each other. That is valuable. That is worth preserving. Even if they recall you, even if they recall me, what we have started will continue. Other humans will meet other Valerians. They will build connections. They will share knowledge. They will change each other. You and I, we are just the beginning. The first of many? I hope so. I hope that one day, relationships like ours will be normal, accepted, celebrated. That's a beautiful dream, Tae-min said. Then let us make it real. They stayed in space for hours, talking about everything and nothing. Their hopes for the future, their fears about the present, their memories of the past. They talked until Tae-min's voice was hoarse and Lyra's markings dimmed with exhaustion. When they finally returned to Harmony Point, it was late. The station was quiet, most people asleep. They walked together through the empty corridors, not caring who might see them, not hiding anymore. At the door to Lyra's quarters, they stopped. Tae-min took both her hands in his. "Thank you," he said. "For tonight, for everything. Thank you for being brave enough to write that journal entry. If you had not been honest about your feelings, even in private, we might never have had this." "So you're saying my embarrassing confession saved us?" "I am saying your honesty saved us. Your willingness to admit what you felt, even when it seemed inappropriate or impossible. That is the human gift, Tae-min, the courage to feel truly and deeply, no matter the cost." They stood there for a long moment, not wanting to separate. Finally, reluctantly, Tae-min pulled away. "Good night, Lyra." "Good night, Tae-min." He turned to go, but she called him back. "Tae-min, one more thing." "Yes." Her markings flickered with amusement. "I really do like your rear end. I thought you should know that I meant what I said. For the record." Tae-min laughed, his face turning red even though there was no one else to see. "Noted. And for the record, I really do like yours too." "Good. We are matched in our appreciations then. Perfectly matched. Good night, human. Good night, Valerian." And for the first time in weeks, Tae-min slept peacefully, dreaming of stars and possibilities. 6 months had passed since that night under the stars. 6 months of uncertainty, debate, arguments, and negotiations between Earth and the Valerian Empire. 6 months of waiting to see if what Tae-min and Lyra had built would survive the scrutiny of 2 entire civilizations. Now, finally, the waiting was over. Tae-min stood in the Grand Assembly Hall of Harmony Point, which had been expanded to accommodate what was happening today. Representatives from Earth sat on one side. Representatives from the Valerian Empire sat on the other. News crews from both worlds recorded everything. This moment would be remembered forever, one way or another. Commander Ha-na stood at the podium, looking more formal than Tae-min had ever seen her. Beside her stood Lyra, calm and radiant, and beside Lyra stood Tae-min himself, trying not to look as nervous as he felt. Dong-hyun gave him a thumbs up from the crowd. Tae-min managed a weak smile back. Hana began to speak. 6 months ago, Ambassador Lyra and Liaison Tae-min presented a proposal to both Earth's government and the Valerian High Council, a proposal for a new kind of alliance, not just an exchange of technology or trade agreements, but something deeper, an exchange of culture, emotion, and understanding. She paused, looking at the assembled crowd. This proposal was controversial. Many questioned whether such an exchange was appropriate, whether it was safe, whether it was wise. Both governments have spent months deliberating. Today, we announce their decision. The room was completely silent. Tae-min could hear his own heartbeat. Hana continued. Earth's government and the Valerian High Council have agreed to establish the first cultural exchange program between our species. This program will send human artists, musicians, philosophers, and teachers to Valerian worlds. In exchange, Valerians will share their scientific knowledge, technological expertise, and logical frameworks with humanity. A murmur ran through the crowd, but Hana wasn't finished. Furthermore, both governments acknowledge that the relationship between Ambassador Lyra and Liaison Tae-min while unprecedented, has demonstrated the value of genuine connection between our species. Their partnership will serve as a model for future collaborations." Taemin felt like he might faint from relief. Beside him, Lyra's markings were glowing so brightly they were almost blinding. A Valerian representative stood up. It was Kira. Taemin's relief turned to worry, but Kira's expression was not hostile. It was thoughtful. "I must speak," Kira said. "For the record." Hana nodded. "Ambassador Kira, you have the floor." Kira walked to the center of the room. She looked at Lyra, then at Taemin. "6 months ago, I came to this station believing that Ambassador Lyra had been compromised, that her emotional attachments were weakening her judgment and endangering our mission. I was wrong." The murmur in the room grew louder. "I have spent these months observing, studying, and I have seen something I did not expect. The humans who work closely with Valerians do not become less competent. They become more engaged, more creative, more committed, and the Valerians who work closely with humans do not become weak. They become more complete." Kira turned to address the entire assembly. "The Valerian Empire has prided itself on logic and efficiency for centuries, but in that time, we have lost something essential. Ambassador Lyra spoke of this months ago. We are dying, not quickly but certainly. Our people lack the emotional connections necessary for true bonding. Our civilization is becoming hollow." She looked at Lyra again. "Ambassador Lyra showed us that emotion is not weakness. She showed us that connections between beings, even beings as different as humans and Valerians, can create strength rather than diminish it. I doubted her. I was wrong, and I am here today to acknowledge that publicly." Kira walked over to Lyra and performed a formal Valerian gesture of respect, one used only for the highest honors. "You have taught me something valuable, Ambassador. Thank you." Lyra returned the gesture, her markings pulsing with emotion. "Thank you, Ambassador Kira. Your willingness to reconsider means more than you know." An Earth representative stood next, an older woman named Dr. Park, who headed the Xenopsychology department. "I would like to add something as well. When we first learned about Liaison Taemin's relationship with Ambassador Lyra, many of us were concerned. We worried about professionalism, about boundaries, about the complications that personal feelings could introduce into diplomatic work." Dr. Park smiled. "But we have seen the results. The cultural database that Taemin and Lyra compiled together is the most comprehensive cross-species study ever created. The linguistic framework they developed has already enabled communication with 3 other species who were previously unreachable. The emotional logic hybrid problem-solving method they pioneered has applications in fields from engineering to medicine." She looked directly at Taemin. "Young man, when you wrote that journal entry about finding an alien attractive, you probably thought you were just being embarrassingly human. But that honesty, that willingness to admit what you truly felt, became the foundation for one of the most important partnerships in human history. We should all be so honest." The assembly broke into applause. Humans and Valerians both, clapping in their different ways. Hana raised her hand for silence. "There is one more announcement. The first joint human-Valerian colony ship will launch in 3 months. It will carry 100 humans and 100 Valerians to a new world where they will build the first mixed settlement. Ambassador Lyra and Liaison Taemin have been asked to lead this mission." Taemin's eyes went wide. He looked at Lyra. She was smiling, clearly having known about this before he did. "We accept," Lyra said firmly. "Wait, shouldn't I have a say in this?" Taemin protested, but he was smiling too. "You can say no if you wish," Lyra said. "But I know you will not. This is too important, too exciting, too impossible to resist." She was right. Of course she was right. "We accept," Taemin confirmed. The applause was thunderous. After the assembly ended, there was a reception. Humans and Valerians mingled together, something that would have been unthinkable a year ago. Taemin watched young Valerians listening intently to human musicians playing traditional instruments. He watched human scientists discussing theoretical physics with Valerian scholars. He watched two species learning to understand each other. Dong-hyun found him in the crowd, carrying 2 glasses of champagne. "Congratulations, you absolute legend. You're leading a colony mission. That's pretty much the coolest thing ever." "I'm terrified," Taemin admitted. "Of course you are. That's how you know it's worth doing." Dong-hyun clinked his glass against Taemin's. "Two impossible things becoming possible. Two impossible things." Later, as the reception was winding down, Taemin found a quiet corner where he could breathe. He pulled out his datapad, the same one where he had written that fateful journal entry so many months ago. He opened a new entry and began to type. Day 217. Today, Earth and the Valerian Empire announced a formal cultural exchange program. Today, they acknowledge that the relationship between Lyra and me is not a mistake or a compromise, but a model for what our species can achieve together. Today, we were asked to lead a mission to establish the first mixed colony. He paused, thinking about how to describe what he felt. "I keep thinking about how this all started, with an embarrassing confession about finding an alien attractive. With a moment of honesty that I thought would ruin everything, but that honesty became the foundation for everything good that followed. I have learned something important these past months. Humans are not the strongest species. We are not the smartest or the most advanced. But we have something that makes us valuable to the galaxy. We have the courage to feel, to admit what we feel, to act on what we feel, even when it seems impossible or inappropriate or terrifying. That is our gift. That is what we bring to the stars. Not just our technology or our determination, but our hearts. Our willingness to love, to hope, to dream, to connect with others even when logic says we should not. Tomorrow, Lyra and I will begin planning for the colony mission. We will face challenges I cannot even imagine yet. But I am not afraid. Because I know that whatever we face, we will face it together. Human and Valerian. Logic and emotion. Strength and compassion. The universe is vast and strange and full of wonders. But the greatest wonder is this, that two beings from completely different worlds can find each other and create something new. Something better than either could be alone. This is only the beginning. Taemin saved the entry and looked up. Lyra was standing nearby, having approached silently while he was writing. She had changed out of her formal robes into something more comfortable. She looked radiant. "Writing in your journal again?" she asked. "Yes. I figured I should document this. For history." "May I read it?" "Always. I don't keep secrets from you anymore." Lyra took the datapad and read the entry. Her markings shifted through several colors as she processed his words. When she finished, she looked at him with an expression of profound tenderness. "You should know," she said, "that I have been writing my own logs. Would you like to read my latest entry?" "Of course." She pulled up her own datapad and handed it to him. Taemin read, Day 217. The human Taemin continues to surprise me. Today, he stood before representatives of two worlds and accepted a mission that will define the rest of his life. He did so without hesitation. This is the human way, to leap toward the unknown with hope rather than fear. I have been thinking about what I would say to him if I could express everything I feel. But Valerian language lacks the proper words, so I will use his language instead. Taemin, your appreciation of my rear end was merely the beginning. Now you have all of me, and I all of you. Not just physically, but emotionally, intellectually, spiritually. We are bonded in a way that transcends biology. You are my partner, my friend, my love. Together we will build something beautiful, A colony where humans and Valerians live not as separate species tolerating each other, but as one community learning from each other. Where children of both species grow up knowing that difference is not something to fear, but something to celebrate. The universe brought us together against all odds. I choose to believe it did so for a reason. We are meant to show our people what is possible when we have the courage to reach across the void between us. Thank you for writing that journal entry. Thank you for being honest enough to admit what you felt, even when it embarrassed you. Thank you for being human. It is the greatest gift you could give me. Taman finished reading with tears in his eyes. He looked at Lyra, this magnificent being who had changed his entire life, and couldn't find words adequate to express what he felt. So he simply took her hand and held it. They stood together at the window, watching the stars. Behind them, humans and Valerians celebrated the new alliance. Before them stretched infinite possibilities. "Are you ready?" Lyra asked. "For the colony? For all the challenges ahead?" "No," Taman said honestly. "I'm terrified. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just a linguist who accidentally became a diplomat who accidentally fell in love with an alien. And I am just a diplomat who accidentally learned to feel emotions again because a human was honest enough to admit he found me attractive." They both laughed. "We are quite the pair," Lyra said. "The strangest pair in the galaxy." Perhaps, but also the most honest. In the observation deck below, Dong Hyun and Commander Ha-Na watched them through the window. "Think they'll be okay?" Dong Hyun asked. "Leading a colony is hard enough without being the first human Valerian couple anyone has ever seen." Ha-Na smiled. "They'll be more than okay. They'll be extraordinary, because they have something most people spend their whole lives searching for. They have genuine connection, genuine understanding, genuine love. That's more valuable than any technology or training." "You sound like a romantic, Commander." "Maybe I am. Maybe these two have taught me something about the value of emotion." Hana turned to look at Dong Hyun. "What about you? You've been working closely with that Valerian communications officer. What's her name, Bo-Ra?" Dong Hyun's face turned red. We're just colleagues." "Sure, just colleagues. Keep telling yourself that." Hana walked away, leaving Dong Hyun to contemplate his own complicated feelings. Above them, in the observation deck, Taemin and Lyra continued to watch the stars. A new ship was being constructed in the distance, the colony vessel that would carry them and 200 others to a new world. "What should we name it?" Taemin asked. "The colony ship?" Lyra thought for a moment. "Something that represents what we are building. Unity? Harmony? Too formal, too corporate." Taemin smiled. "What about new beginnings?" "Perfect, simple but meaningful, very human. I'll take that as a compliment." "It was meant as one." They stood in comfortable silence for a while until Taemin spoke again. "Lyra, I know we've talked about the future a lot, the colony, the mission, the cultural exchange, but we've never really talked about us, about what we are to each other, about what this means long term." "What do you want it to mean?" "I want..." Taemin struggled to find the right words. "I want you in my life forever, whatever form that takes. I know we can't have children together. I know our lives will be complicated in ways normal couples never face, but I don't care. I choose you. Every day, I choose you." Lyra's markings blazed so brightly they illuminated the entire observation deck. "And I choose you. Every day. For all my days." Is that like a Valerian marriage proposal?" "It is better than a proposal. It is a statement of fact. We are bonded, not by law or ceremony, but by choice, by love, by commitment. That bond is stronger than any formal declaration could be." "So we're married?" "In every way that matters, yes." "Good," Taemin said. Because I wasn't sure how to ask you properly, and I was worried about messing up the cultural protocols. Lyra laughed, that beautiful melodic sound. You are ridiculous. But you love me anyway. I do. Against all logic, against all probability, I love you completely. Same, Tamian said. Against all common sense, I love you too. They kissed for the first time. It was awkward, their biology not quite compatible, but they made it work. They always made it work. When they finally pulled apart, both smiling, Taemin had one more question. What do you think the colony will be like? Our new world? I do not know. Beautiful, I hope. Challenging, certainly. But whatever it is, we will build it together. Humans and Valerians, creating something that has never existed before. A place where difference is celebrated, where emotion and logic work together, where love between any beings is accepted. A place of new beginnings. For everyone. For everyone. They turned back to watch the ship being built, their future home, their impossible dream made real. And in that moment, looking out at the infinite stars, surrounded by the miracle of connection between two species who should never have met, Taemin understood something profound. Humanity's gift to the galaxy was not strength or technology or cleverness. It was heart, the courage to feel deeply, love truly, and connect honestly with whoever reached back, no matter how different they were. That was the human advantage. That was what would carry them to the stars and beyond. That was what would save not just humanity, but every species brave enough to open their hearts to others. And it had all started with one embarrassing journal entry about an alien's rear end. The universe, Taemin decided, had a very strange sense of humor. But he was grateful for it anyway.